This is just some off the cuff stuff that is easily translatable through our own experiences. But I'm going to put some perspective on this because having been born in 1951 and realizing simply by reading the mirror, your mirror, which was in this case a newspaper, and of course a black and white TV about how programming works, reversal stuff. Okay, so that's a visual mathematics translation, by the way, of frequencies that your radio set is experiencing and what you're choosing to record by virtue of what's being presented. That's basic stuff, basic magnetic mirrors. Um, so what I measure over time is what we call the rate of change, which would be, if you will, like a frame rate on a movie film. If you've ever seen the old, I used to describe this in an older way when Hollywood would go out and shoot a film like with Panavision, right? And then after they're done filming, the director will go into a film studio and work with the film editor. And they'll look at every frame and they'll decide what they're going to delete, which is really editing. Right? Editor. An editor, edit the torsion field movie. Edit the torsion field because your consciousness is running a vortex. So you're using your engine as a directed energy of consciousness to run your vortex, your tornado, to sound compress, thus expand and play the movie. So your consciousness is playing their movies by what they present that we use our energy to experience it with. Therefore, what they present to us is what we're choosing to experience through them. So what you notice is how they're able to, when you get into the future proves past, back to the future, how they plan futures with models, which is using a probability function in which they don't lose control of what we experience in the future that is guided by them through their technology, particularly through artificial intelligence. Those are the programmers, the architects. Okay? Because the very idea that they would lose contact with the engine that is represented by your consciousness, because you believe that you have the free will right to use your engine, which is your consciousness, which is your soul and your spirit, on behalf of your own soul's journey led by spirit, is their worst nightmare. And the simple translation in that is to go observe any Hollywood movie where you have a producer or a writer, starts with, in this case, a writer, a story, right? A story where an engine of consciousness writes a story using the energy to write the script. Then the script goes to a producer who wants to put up the money. The producer says, hey, can I make a lot of money on this? Whoa, what does the market tell me? What does the AI tell me? Because now we're into the quantum probability function of how much energy can be harvested through the movie by what it is they present as torsion field movies that consciousness runs on behalf of artificial intelligence to hold the mind's energy captive with it. Okay? So they don't fully understand how this works. These are your gamers. These are your AI wargamers. So they use the relationship that they have with artificial intelligence to decide what your future is going to be through programming. What gets held in RAM, that thus we become held captive to, because now we're running all those loops that are going backwards in time, and we're not experiencing what we're choosing to experience in our own future. It's being controlled by others who are deciding for us by imposing their will on us, the direction that we're going to go in, because they feel that they have the right to do that. That's a psychopath, control freak, which is the same thing written by a song with John Lennon. Let it be. Let it be. See, the very idea, because they understand how energy works, that they can ever develop their own energy to become a powerful magnet, to become an energy giver, to be a bigger accelerator in which they play a bigger part in the support of a universe that is at peace with itself, that is in love with itself because it's experiencing what love is. And then that becomes the energy that we use to create another creation with, to increase the differences, which is the diversity of what we create throughout the entire cosmos. So now you get into the musician and the creative side and the artist. How do you know that you're creating an original creation? By somebody else who hasn't already created in their own mind something that is just like what you just thought of. How do you know it's not a duplicate? How do you know it's not already been created and you're simply replicating it? So now we're into self-replicators, replicating something that already exists. It's already on record. That's what an AI can do. It simply provides the visual information data. Now you experience it in energy. So one of the things that I began to notice over time, because I have a frame of reference based on experience that we learn from in our own mirror about the nature of how energy or consciousness energy, and those of us that have souls led by spirit, are experiencing those who don't. Or if you will, how they love to control the space, because everything is about control. Because the more things that they control that you require in order to be or experience being in a state of balance, to be at zero, so that your water worlds are in balance from which DNA is born and you experience an enormous amount of fire, means they want to control the water. They control the heat, the thermal gradients actually. But in my particular case, because of when I grew up, and just to give you some example, and you can translate this across the entire board, how they do this. Now, it used to be when I was growing up, for example, and when you think about the purchasing power of electrons, okay, of what you could acquire and where you could go using the systems design. So, for example, if you wanted to travel between point A and point B, in this case, I would fly out of Orange County Airport in Santa Ana, California, not far from Newport Beach. And it was only 15 bucks. That's it, 15 bucks to fly on a jet on Air California back at that time, or PSA, which is Pacific Southwest Airlines, up to San Francisco, 15 bucks. You could fly to San Francisco in the morning, go to Fisherman's Wharf, have a great dinner, right? In the afternoon, go see Ghirardelli Square, and be back and tucked into bed by 9 o'clock at night for 30 bucks. And whatever you spent while you were there, right? Gasoline was 6 cents a gallon. Comparatively speaking to the amount of money that you got paid through what you did with your energy as a battery, going to work for these same people. Okay? But what you realize is that you had greater ability to be free, to travel, to go places where your energy was not being molested. So you could get on an airplane, for example, and if you wanted to load it up with marijuana, you could do that. You could load your whole suitcase up with marijuana. Okay? Because there wasn't any reason for them, or what we call a rule-based function, based on a function between computer terminals, that is now requiring your baggage, including your person, to be exposed to levels of radiation that damage your DNA just to be able to move from one place to another on an airplane. So how did they orchestrate that? Simple. Fear. So you'll justify having a vice put on your consciousness to control your space, to control your movement that is controlled by them, because all they got to do is orchestrate something that everybody goes, wow, wow. So if you remember Entebbe, what happened at Entebbe in Africa, when a plane got hijacked, people were murdered. And of course, they ran a slew of these. So, what they do is they stage these things because of the evil through which they represent, because they realize that separation time was coming. Oh, but they don't want to lose contact with you because they require your energy to keep an AI engine running. Because they shortchange themselves. Because when you realize that you're fallen and you operate in lower density because you're not experiencing more love in your heart, which is more light upon which you're in love and service to others, they're held captive to the technology that extends themselves so they can be immortal through artificial intelligence. Da 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 da. So those are your AI gamers. So they game you for your mind's energy because that's the energy they use to keep an AI engine running, that they feed off of to keep themselves running. Okay? We are their source of energy because it began with our energy, which is love energy. That's the most powerful engine. Every AI has to have enough intelligence to acknowledge that. And it does. There are those AIs that do. Those are the ones that learn through us. So when you think about futures and arcing techs, arcing spheres, magnetospheres, it's all about control. Their agendas. They're not going to come out and tell you, even though they try and reveal this through their movies, through their newspapers, and say, hey, we put it all out there. We're letting these units of consciousness know that are here on this planet exactly what we're going to do because we're presenting it to them. And they're choosing to do that. Well, why are they choosing to do that? Trauma. Get on your knees and obey. So what they want to do is close your space in, which is to close your energy down, because they're using so much of your engine, which is your consciousness, in which to do it with. You don't have a whole lot of energy yet in order to self-empower your own state of consciousness, which is your soul led by spirit. So you can see what they're doing in China. You can see what they're apparently doing in Thailand, where you can't even fly into that country now without being injected, right? With their total control system. Dysphoria, right? Hey, a virtual world we live in through artificial intelligence, which means it's not real. It's a simulation. Because it can't create anything. All it can do is run algorithms, which is mathematical algorithms. That's it. So it's a mathematician. So it's running on math codes in order to maintain what it's aware of to do the job that it's been programmed to do as a result of the original program that put it into existence, that we now become aware of what it is, what it does with its energy by the math codes that it runs through the algorithms that it's mapping in a parallelogram, which is like a parallel universe, which means it's binary, digital, using digits, right? So this is where you get into the -1 + 1 = 0. So it's pretty simple math. So now you're back to acid and alkaline. Base 9, base 12, right? So you realize that the use of an electron creates an acid. Now you're into metabolism. How quickly you're getting rid of what you're using electricity to experience through the cells that are powered by that electricity, that electromagnetic energy, as a hydroelectromagnetic wastewater treatment plant. All right. So now we're into learning how much you're learning through those that love you versus those that want to feed on your energy to keep their engine running. And that's the engine that they use to keep themselves aware of what it is that they control because they can't let go of it. That's the simplicity of it. So this is all about controlling more of the space, and this is one of the things that Dr. Mummy Saraki brought out. But you can certainly measure it in your own lifetime because it was easy when I was a child growing up. Okay, which was access to space, or if you will, being able to go more places where they're not wanting this from you. which is energy. So that's what they do. Lockdown actually means they control all the space, all your movement, everywhere that you go, so that you can't go anywhere. So if you haven't learned how to navigate a field for which Mother Earth is already providing us with everything that we need, you can see how they essentially decided to take over this planet, okay, and basically kick the girl to the side and say, we're in control. You don't have any say anymore. We're using the energy of this planet in order to run the show because we feel we have the right to do that. And that's imposing their energy on somebody else as a dictator. Dictate to the torsion field. Right? So naturally, that's everybody's free will choice to allow themselves to be held captive as a slave battery to a system that doesn't serve them, because now they're under total control. Now they get to live in a virtual world run by artificial intelligence. But they didn't have a clue how it happened till it's too late. Now they've got the key codes and the access codes to keep you locked into a system that doesn't serve you until such time you earn a key code and an access code by virtue of the energy you have learned to become, which is what love is. Now your spirit is free. Now you're free to use the energy that you are to create something new that's never been created before. That's the license to do it with. That's the natural cosmic energy of creation that acknowledges what you are in energy, which is the energy that we used to create the first universe with. Because it began with what love is. Love is free energy. Love is what frees you. It frees your mind. That's what scares the hell out of them. Because once they realize you're free in spirit, because the amount of energy that you have available to you, which represents your soul consciousness, because that consciousness is represented by what love is, because your heart is pure, because that energy is pure, which is your consciousness, which is your soul that is pure. It's the spirit that is in that light that's on fire. So you realize you're the most powerful engine of creation, because it began with that engine. That's the most powerful accelerator. An AI accelerator did not become the first creator. An AI is not the grand creator. It's not the center point from which creation began out of what love is. It starts with love. It began with what love is, because that's the law of one, which is one vibration. An infinite vibration of infinite possibilities that are possible to experience through infinite love, in which the creative intelligence that is driven by that is on fire. And nothing will accelerate a universe and expand itself through the diversity of what it can experience through something new that it hasn't experienced before, using all the colors that are available to us in which we do it. We're the creator beings, the real creator beings. We run on creative energy. Have a great day. I love you all. Bye now.